Oh man, the PlayStation 5 reveal event was just something else. So many amazing surprises, a ton of gameplay, and even more so, that PlayStation 5 reveal event, am I right? A lot of opinions on the internet about the new console look. Personally, I find it sexy AF, it looks amazing. I've also made this post yesterday at the end of the stream, and I'm seeing a lot of opinions out there. Many of them actually are positive, like way more positive than I was expecting, so I'm going to cover that in this video too. But as I was saying, we have a ton of gameplay to go over, a lot of first-party games that I'm really excited for, including that Spider-Man game that's, by the way, going to release later this year. A huge surprise nonetheless, but you know what? Let's jump right into it, and as always, a thumbs up on this video would be super awesome. By the way, if you're hyped for any of the games that were shown in yesterday's stream, then I'm doing a giveaway for any 2020 release on any platform. It can be an upcoming game or a game that's going to release later on the PlayStation 5. The winner chooses the game, and of course we also have a second one again for a game of your choice, this time around in partnership with Instant Gaming, so a huge shout out to them for making this possible, and you can find both the links in the description box down below as well as in the pinned comment. Anyway, here's another look at the console. Of course, Sony is going with a very bold approach when it comes to the design, and basically just overconfidence with the entire design. It looks very futuristic and probably one of the most daring designs that Sony came up with, at least in recent history. Now there's two versions of the console. One of them is fully digital, so it misses the 4K media player. By the way, the 4K Blu-ray media player is back on the PlayStation 5, but now it's going to be there. It's most likely going to be over $500, maybe even over $550, but if we have the digital version, it's very likely that that version might be sub $500, which I think many people are going to be happy with. It's not going to be $399, I'm not betting on that, but even this looks really awesome. And I'm seeing many of your guys' opinions going over this, and it seems that the overwhelming majority of the people who have responded to my post seem to like, and like some of you even love, the design of it all. And by the way, if you had any doubts that this can sit horizontally, yes it can. We have some screenshots right here that perfectly showcase it. Kinda looks a bit like a clam, just saying. It looks like an oyster, so to speak, but I still like the design, and it's probably not going to fit with anything in my house, but not so sure about the mini fridge though. Anyway, let's get a look at the first game, or well, the second game that was actually showcased in the video, which was the new Marvel Spider-Man called Spider-Man Miles Morales. And I was so blown away by the fact that this actually releases this holiday, so this is basically a launch title. It features, of course, Miles Morales as the main character. According to the information that I have at hand, the story happens during winter time, at least for the majority of the game, and of course we have a more capable and quite experienced Miles Morales, as it's obvious from the trailer. Apparently there is a time gap between the events of Spider-Man Miles Morales and the first one on the PlayStation 4, maybe 6 months, maybe even more than that, because he definitely seems to hold on its own. Now he does have his signature abilities, like the camouflage ability. We can see it at some point where he's kind of translucent and you can see a little bit through him. I cannot wait to see how this actually translates into gameplay, because like being able to camouflage in the environment is probably going to add another layer to the gameplay and to your tactics when it comes to combat. But of course he also has his signature Venom Blast, that's kind of like this electromagnetic shock that he casts from his palm and like sends into one of these enemies right here. Now this isn't Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 5, by the way. That's going to follow a few years into the next generation. It's very likely that this is just a standalone, kind of like a tie-in between the first one and the one that's going to follow suit next generation. And maybe it's not going to be as long as the first one either. It's something that I'm expecting 10 to 15 hours at most, maybe even less than that. A lot of people are betting on 10 hours at most, and it's probably not going to be full priced either. Now the reason why I can see Sony and Insomniac releasing this so soon is because of that exclusivity, and because it's going to be like a launch title, a first party launch title that's going to definitely help selling those consoles. And Sony has been basically banking hard on having a ton of exclusivity, a ton of launch titles with the PlayStation PlayStation 5, and it's most likely that's what's going to basically give them an edge. Another game that I'm highly anticipating is also Godfall. We finally got some brand new gameplay footage, even though we did get some leaked stuff in the past few months as well, but this shows a ton of new gameplay, and I'm actually surprised just how close this looks like to Lords of the Fallen. Kind of gives me vibes of that. It also gives me vibes of Kingdom of Amalur, and by the way, that's also getting a remaster sometimes really soon. But I am liking the gameplay way more than I liked the initial trailer reveal, and some of these aesthetics are actually quite nice. Some people say it's a bit generic. I kind of can see that. Yes, it kind of goes in that direction a little bit, but it does have some really sweet aesthetics, like those weapons and armor sets look pretty legit. So this is an action RPG. Loot is going to be a major focus on it. We can see a whole bunch of weapons and abilities being used. We have a ton of two-handers, like two-handed swords, a lot of spears, hammers and whatnot, and there is quite a heaviness to those hits as well. I like that the combat actually feels like it's heavy, and when you hit those enemies in the head or if you hit the ground, it does actually feel like you're swinging something heavy that's going to absolutely wreck something in front of it. But there's also, of course, these one-handed weapon choices, like you can carry a weapon and a shield and kind of go with like a more tanky character, or you can go with just two one-handers and have something like a double sword character that deals faster damage. And we also saw a bunch of abilities, including one of these characters kind of summoning a bunch of holographic swords that kind of dealt damage all around it and like just propelled themselves into the enemy, which I really liked. There's dodge mechanics that also look really sweet, a lot of armor sets. I'm really curious, since this is a co-op game, you can play with up to 4 players. Is this going to contain any microtransactions? Is Gearbox going to sell any armor sets? I hope not. We're gonna see that this fall, but so far I'm impressed with the gameplay and I want to see more of it. Of course, we can't go over the reveals without covering one of the most anticipated games for the next generation, which is none other than Horizon Zero Dawn 2. As a matter of fact, that's not even its initial title. Its real name is Horizon Forbidden West, and no, we don't have a release date, not even like a hint to that, but it's very likely that this is a 2021 release or 2022 at most, but I'm betting on 2021. Now, some of the stuff that we saw over there is actually really freaking cool, like the environments obviously look amazing. The story is very likely to happen in the city of San Francisco and maybe the areas around it. We can see the Golden Gate Bridge right here being covered in vegetation, but there's other shots in there as well that look very promising, look very awesome, and already the first game was a marvel in terms of what it was able to achieve visually, but this one on the new gen, it's going to blow a lot of people away. Now, we did see quite a number of creatures being shown. One of them was of course in the early shot, this robo tortoise that came out of the water, absolutely massive. It looked really freaking cool. Cannot wait to see how this is in game. A ton of other machines as well, including pterodactyls at some point. We saw a bunch flying towards the end of the video, but the ones that I found most impressive were these mammoths right here towards the very end. It just looks all around amazing. These designs and concepts look just all around amazing, and the game is probably going to sell in the millions. But what's most important and what I found to be most intriguing was the fact that now we have underwater exploration, maybe even combat. One of these underwater scenes right here was actually breathtaking to say the least, and no pun intended. But this is one of the best interpretations of underwater I've seen so far. The camera is way closer to Aloy as she's moving through the vegetation and like pushing everything away. At some point we also saw this huge creature swimming in, and it's very likely that combat is going to be a thing. Underwater combat and even underwater exploration is going to be a big part of this game. Now, the game that actually showcased, in my opinion, the most when it comes to what the PlayStation 5 has to offer has to be Ratchet & Clank. There's a new title called Rift Apart that's going to launch sometimes after the new launch of the new consoles. I'm not sure if it's going to be a 2020 release. It's most likely going to be a 2021 plus, but this was a 3-minute almost trailer and gameplay that showcased the true potential of the PlayStation 5. So yeah, I think that this is going to be the perfect game to showcase the new instant loading potential of the PlayStation 5 and the new SSD tech, as Ratchet and Clank, as you can see over here, pass through all of these worlds seamlessly, and there's like no loading time. You just like go through these portals, go through these worlds, they instantly load and bring you through all of these environments, and they all look visually stunning. It kind of reminds me a bit of a Crack in Time, by the way, so this is exactly what I want to see. We are back on the main story basically. Also, by the way, may I say that Clank is looking more shiny and chromy than ever before, and this is like 4K right here, so visually just looks stunning. The gameplay looks amazing. Of course, a ton of new enemies, a ton of new weapons in there that I'm seeing, and I cannot wait to play this. I'm actually going to cover Ratchet and Clank here on this channel for the very first time, as this is one of my childhood games that I've played, and I basically played through the entire series from the first one on the PlayStation 2. Now, I'm not going to go over each and every single game that was showcased in the teaser. Of course, we also had the new Resident Evil Village, which by the way happens in my country, at least from what I was able to tell from the currency, which is my national currency. This happens in my country, so maybe we're gonna play it here on this channel, maybe give my 2 cents, see if that is actually the case. I've been to villages in my country, they were never this crazy, but you never know. I'm probably gonna do a video on that as well. But there is one more title I want to cover, if you can even call it that, because I'm not sure if this game is even like developed yet in a playable state, but that is Project Ethia, and this is a working title, by the way. It's going to be a PS5 release by Square Enix, so I'm not really sure exactly when this is going to release. We don't even have a release date window at the current time, and it's very likely that this is years off until we actually get to see it. But I was very impressed by some of the alleged gameplay that I was able to see. Like, we can see the character over here. I'm assuming she is Ethia, that the title is talking about, just jumping over these environments. It seems like the type of gameplay that I enjoy the most. Very fast paced, a lot of jumping, a lot of parkour. Action RPG is what I love the most, and this just showcases that PS5 capability even more. Kind of reminds me a bit of that PlayStation 5 tech demo that we had a few weeks ago, so it's just all around amazing. So obviously this is probably going to be something like an action RPG kind of game, or at least action adventure, but again, very far off. It's just a project at this point, not even sure exactly when this is going to release, but if it releases like this, it's probably going to attract a lot of attention, and it definitely grabbed mine. Anyway, a ton of other games in there as well that I didn't cover. Let me know down below which was the one that you're most anticipating. Of course, we also had like Demon's Souls remaster or remake. Looks amazing. I just want to get into it and play it more. We also had Gran Turismo, but a lot more in there as well. Again, leave your comment down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up on it would be super awesome, and I will see you in a bit.